Oh, I don't know what it is with either YouTube or Facebook. It wouldn't share my thumbnail image, but it let me post that I'm going to go live. I found my elf hat and my Christmas sweater. I'm not feeling very festive, but maybe this will help. 2 days before Christmas and Santa and presents and all that good stuff. Well, here's my Christmas sweater. It's got Frosty the Snowman and some trees, holly wreaths. What's this? I don't know. What is it? Snowflakes, of course. I don't know why it has plaid, but it does. So, anyway, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. I just can't get into the mood. It's so sunny, no snow. And, yeah, we're in worse lockdown than ever, but I was able to buy groceries yesterday. For some reason, I had a craving for short ribs and cabbage, so I bought some short ribs and a head of cabbage. Eh, it was pretty good. I need to spice it up a little. Even though I used a little homemade chicken broth, it just wasn't the flavor that I remember. I think maybe it's supposed to have onions and more black pepper and a little more salt. Anyway, I'll reheat the short ribs and cabbage today and try a little onion and black pepper and maybe some salt. I like my elf hat and my Christmas sweater. Yay! The cats are mad at me. It's sunny and not too cold, but I'm not letting them outside until I finish my Tuesday morning podcast on YouTube. Because if I hear a meow outside, I feel compelled to go out and check. There's one cat in particular that does not live here but comes around hoping for some food and maybe a little kitty cat love. Well, my cats are spayed, they aren't interested. Anyway, it's almost Christmas. 3 more days. Doesn't feel like it. I don't have a dead tree in my house, nor an artificial tree. There's plenty of trees outside in the yard. There's cedars and oak and an apple tree and some fruit trees that might or might not have survived. We'll find out in the spring. I had peach, apple, and a volunteer um, avocado, two apricot trees that I'm pretty sure died. I think some kind of beetle got them. A borer beetle, a bark beetle, bores into a tree and lays its eggs, and then the poor trees, equivalent of our blood vessels, are broken. It's sad and horrible. Anyway, the peach tree survived, but I didn't get any fruit in 2020, and that's okay. Sometimes the fruit tree takes a year off, and it's a young tree. The apple tree had lots of apples, but it also had lots of worms. Apparently, the worms kind of start off in the oak trees and then move on to the apples. So next time I feel rich, I'll get the oak trees trimmed so they aren't so close to the apple. Anyway, Christmas. Okay, this is not when Jesus was born. Shepherds wouldn't be lying out in the fields in December. It's too cold. They take the sheep into the stables, whether it's a barn or a cave. They take the sheep inside for the winter. Um, so Jesus was born in September, not December. So we really ought to be celebrating the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, which of course is followed by the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, in September. But probably due to anti Semitism, evil phone making noises. The Catholic Church, way back centuries ago, decided that Christmas was in December on the Saturnalia, the ancient Roman celebration of the birth of Saturn. What are you doing, you evil phone? Go away. Um, the Saturnalia, the New Year images of the young baby and the old man are images of Saturn, the two-faced god, the god who died and was reborn, which probably started in Mesopotamia, Iraq, with Nimrod and all of those pagan gods. Anyway, the tree thing probably came from Europe, Northern Europe, maybe Germany, maybe Finland or Norway. But it is not, as some people say, the worship of a red mushroom with hallucinogenic properties. That's hokum. Yeah, I read that horrid book by John Allegro, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. Santa Claus or Sinterklaas or Saint Nick, Saint Nicholas, is an amalgam of many different myths, legends, and traditions. I always wondered how he could come down the chimney since we didn't have one. We didn't have a fireplace, but that's okay. We'll worry about that later. And we did leave out milk and cookies for Santa. Well, Merry Christmas, Corona, all the way from Ireland. I don't know why I wanted short ribs and cabbage. They are not the traditional Christmas feast, but that's what I wanted. So that's what I had last night. I don't know, turkey, ham. Sometimes I want a leg of lamb, but they're hard to get, even around Easter when lamb is the traditional Easter meal, not turkey, not ham. It's almost impossible to get a leg of lamb. Fortunately, lamb is the Passover meal, so around Passover, which is close to Easter, you can get a leg of lamb, but there aren't, you have to search. There are grocery stores that just don't have it. Ah, anyway, I do have not a whole ham, but a slice of, actually, it's smoked turkey ham for Christmas dinner. I wish we had Boxing Day like England. On Christmas Day, the family has a feast. They open their presents the next day, Boxing Day, which I wonder why they don't call it Unboxing Day, since they're opening the presents. Well, anyway, whatever. Now, if you've read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, you'll find that the most people had a goose on Christmas. But in the end, I never read the book all the way to the end, but in all the movies, Scrooge buys them the prize turkey after he's been reformed. Well, we don't have many Scrooges in this town, reformed or otherwise. What we have are, oh, hi, Robert. I, I'm just babbling about Christmas. We have a ragtag group of various volunteers. Some are in Rotary Club, some are in Lions or Lioness, some are just concerned people, some are local shop owners, and there are toys to be given away for children. There's all kinds of food. And as a senior, I get a senior lunch 3 days a week, but only one time this week because people have Christmas off. But it'll be a nice ham dinner for lunch today. I try not to complain about cooking, but last week I couldn't eat the chicken soup. All I could taste was oregano and chili peppers. Couldn't eat it. I froze it so that later I can add maybe a teaspoonful to a more mild form of chicken soup. Oh, yes, Phil was born 16th of December, and he was always pointing out that that was Beethoven's baptism day. Yeah, we have, anyway, our various Santas and Mrs. Santas all over this mountain community. And I've had to tell people, quit bringing me food. I can't eat it all. And I've managed to give some away, which is good. I have a lifetime supply of rice, pasta, canned goods, but the fresh stuff like onions, tomatoes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, apples, they only last so long. So I guess I'll be making some apple butter. The onions will keep a long, long time. A couple potatoes started to go bad, so I pulled them out and tossed them in the trash and then rinsed off the rest of the potatoes and put them out to dry because rot is kind of infectious. It'll get the whole bag of apples, potatoes, or whatever. Anyway, I'm not starving, that's for sure. And thanks to a very good friend who I haven't met him in person because he's in Germany and I'm in California, but he basically covered the cost of Tora Kitty Cat's surgery when she broke her foot. So I think I can pay my bills this month. I mean, this month meaning January, really. Um, wow. Oh, and we get a whole $600 stimulus check. Well, yeah, that'll carry me through for almost 1 month. But most people here in California are paying over $1,000 a month for rent when they can afford to pay it, and that's for very low income housing, like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in a neighborhood. This is here. Happy birthday, Lucas. Old young man. Keep up the good work. By the way, I listened to Robert Phoenix's show before coming on here, which is one of the reasons I moved my show from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock Pacific time. Venezuela's getting 33 million, huh? I wonder how much various politicians are getting. They get their paychecks. Even when they're on vacation, they get paid for not working. Now, I don't like any of them. I'm not wild about Trump, but Biden and Kamala Harris, they will absolutely destroy this country. They will destroy it. Biden by doing nothing because that's what he does, and Harris by promoting her radical communist agenda. She isn't even a socialist. She wants to be at the top of the hierarchy with her fancy clothes and luxury apartment and all that stuff, and the rest of us can just dig ditches and eat dirt. Kind of like Stalin. Trump creates chaos, and I'm chaos just a little bit. But I really wish we had a third choice. I really do. Yeah, well, I guess our votes don't count. They don't matter because the elites think we're too stupid to make good choices. As a teacher and just as a member of the community, I've met many people who are really intelligent. They don't want to go to college, they aren't into school, but they are smart. And they know how to do things and get them done right. And they know how to make good choices and discuss issues without, sorry, without resorting to name calling and backbiting and oh, wow. They actually have ideas in their heads. And yes, racism exists, but as a child of the 60s, I can tell you it's much better now. Much, much better. Not because of the riots in Watson, Chicago, and everywhere, as much as because of men like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who inspired everybody to march with him to Washington, D.C. It was people of all races, creeds, religions, skin color. Well, the Kennedy, which I think it was Bobby Kennedy, marched next to Dr. King. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, whatever, they were all in that march. I was too young to march. In 65, I was 11 years old. That's when they killed Dr. King because he wasn't inspiring riots. The powers that be wanted riots because they wanted people to hate people of color. They didn't want peaceful protests. Kind of like 2020, the end of 2019 and the beginning of this year. Glad you stopped in, Robert. Thank you for coming. Well, anyway, so we've got riots and burning and looting all stopped. They all stopped. And the protests now, which the media ignore, are mostly Trump supporters or just patriots who want City Hall or State House to express their opinion. And gee, they couldn't stop the riots, looting, and burning, but they can bring out basically tanks along with tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannon for these people who are just standing there waving the American flag. It's awful. And yet it's Christmas, and we're supposed to be jolly. And you know what? I choose to be jolly. I choose to say ho, ho, ho. But it always reminds me of the pirate song, yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. Back in the day, sailors were paid quite often with rum, not money. And if you were wearing rags and working on a ship at sea, a good shot of rum probably sustained you. Oh, wow. I got my fruitcake. I got a slice of turkey ham. I have my kitty cats, and I found my Christmas sweater and my elf hat. Still can't figure out why the plaid. Is Santa Scottish? I don't know. It's just horrid. And you can watch the replay of Robert Phoenix's video from this morning or many other mornings. He had a video, well, someone else's video that he shared. From Portland, Oregon. The state senate there was having a hearing, and it's supposed to be a public hearing where citizens can express their opinions, but they were not allowed into the courthouse. I don't like that. And it was peaceful, and there were people of all colors, races, creeds, religions, whatever. But just a small group saying, hey, we want to come in and testify. It's our right. It's in our Constitution. And instead, the National Guard came out and made them leave quite forcefully. The video doesn't show much of the use of force, but it was there and you could see it. Anyway, I am really, really frightened for this country, no matter who sits in the White House. After all, as Trump learned, the president doesn't have that much power. There's a huge bureaucracy that impedes or encourages the policies that they want. They impede the policies they don't like, and they encourage the policies they do like. An entrenched, unelected bureaucracy consisting of people who think that they know better than you and I how to run our country. And remember, it's our country, not theirs. It doesn't belong to some bureaucrat sitting at a desk in Washington, D.C., who has no clue what it's like to actually live in this land, on this land, to work every day to build a life that some bureaucrat can destroy with the stroke of a pen. Or our wonderful Governor Newsom of California, who closed all the restaurants and then he went to a fancy restaurant called the French Laundry with a dozen or more of his closest friends indoors. And what do you know? He ended up having to be quarantined. He was exposed to COVID. Gee, you think? Meanwhile, we can't even eat outdoors at a restaurant. We can get takeout, and in this community, we do. We support our local businesses. Even the bookstore can't let you go inside, not even one person at a time. They use their cell phone to take images, and people pick up their books outside on the curb in contactless pickup. So someone sets it down and goes back inside, and then the customer comes up and takes it. Some shops are able to have little outdoor tables, but they can't let people inside. And they can't put everything outside. Yeah, sure, the proprietors will get a $600 check pretty soon. It's been approved. Soon as Trump signs it, it'll take a week or two or more, depending upon whether you allowed the government to have your bank information. Well, last year I did not. I let them mail me a check because I'm not putting my bank information on a website. And guess what? All the government servers have been compromised by some virus. Gee, after learning that the Department of Motor Vehicles here was running on the old Windows where it comes up in DOS and you have to type in windows/win.com, or I forget it. No, it's .html, whatever. Yeah, it's windows.win or windows/win, and hit enter and then it opens Windows. What is that, Windows 2 or 3? I said, there's something wrong with our government. There's something terribly wrong with our government. Those computers are from the 1980s. This is 2020. Actually, in 2019, people made such a stink about it that they started buying new computers for the Department of Motor Vehicles, the DMV. Ah, horrors. Horrible. No wonder their computers were always crashing. It- oh my. Hmm. Oh my. Well, anyway, I actually bought groceries yesterday. Couldn't find Alka Seltzer in the store. They had tons of toilet paper, napkins, paper towels, hand sanitizer, hand soap, dish soap, laundry soap, bleach, you name it. But no Alka Seltzer except one lonely jar of Alka Seltzer gummies. Well, forget it. I want the plop plop fizz fizz, thank you. And I'm not out of it yet, just have to ration it carefully. And I still have the pink stuff. I love the pink stuff, but if you take too much of it, it can really mess you up. You gotta shake it up real good. And since I'm the only one here, I just take the cap off and drink some. I have another bottle for visitors who might want some. But so I go for Alka Seltzer when my tummy's upset. And I use Pepto Bismol, the pink stuff, when, well, I don't like Imodium because if you take too much, you're in misery city. Hi, Tim. Once again, I found my Christmas sweater and my elf hat. I'm trying to get festive. I've got Frosty the Snowman, snowflakes, trees, holly wreaths, and for some reason plaid. Maybe that's supposed to be a fence? I don't know. Looks like a Scottish plaid to me. Ah, well. Well, I have aspirin. I like the ingredients in Alka-Seltzer include a citrus, um, probably chemically synthesized, citric something. I guess I could add bicarbonate, so, baking soda and lemon juice and an aspirin and stir them up. But I like the fizzies and I like the convenience of an Alka Seltzer. So, anyway, apparently I'm not the only one who's been having digestive problems. It's been a thing since the late 80s and early 90s. Oh, and I have, of course, tonic water, which helps oddly with my digestion. It has a little lemon juice in it. Oh dear. Carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, citric acid, sodium benzoate, preservative, quinine, and natural flavors. Oh, what a. But it does help to prevent muscle cramps in my legs, which I get quite often. And some people claim that quinine is a preventive and maybe a cure for COVID, but I like what Joseph Farrell points out. Cigarette smoke kills the COVID virus. How about that? I should light another one. Hi, Oswald. I've been on for 35 minutes just babbling. I have nothing to say. It's Christmas, almost. We get to worship a dead tree, festoon it with decorations, and put offerings underneath it. I'm just kidding, I'm teasing. But sometimes it seems as if once a year the Christmas tree takes the place of the television set for most families. We turn off the lights and just light the Christmas tree. And if we're really fancy, we have blinking lights on the tree. And we sit there with hot cocoa or cinnamon spiced apple cider, also hot. And we just look at the tree and go, ooh, well, it won't rot your brains the way TV does. I haven't had television for, gee, I don't know, definitely more than 10 years, probably more like 15 years, and I don't miss it, especially now that we have YouTube and Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and Lulu and Roku. Um, I guess Roku's just a box that lets you watch all these things. Um, what else have we got? I don't know, all kinds of stuff that you can get without subscribing to a cable service as long as you have internet. My problem is my desktop computer is dead and I haven't found a way to hook up my laptop to the flat screen. I'm not sure it can be done. There is a possibility of getting a horridly expensive cable apparatus that'll let me adapt this connector to that connector, but why? I'm okay with the little screen on the laptop until I get my ancient TV moved away from the wall so I can safely use it. It has tubes. It has a picture tube. It's partly solid state, but it actually has little tubes inside as well. And it gets hot. And some idiot who is trying to be helpful shoved it up against the wall so it's touching my coat rack. It's touching the coats on my coat rack. I don't want to set them on fire. Thank you. And that was after I paid some guys to move the TV away from the wall. So I've got to find someone to move the darn thing away from the wall again. It weighs a ton. It takes 2 men to pick it up so that the little flimsy table that it sits on can be moved without the legs collapsing. I don't know how they managed to drag it across the floor, about 2 feet, I think. Anyway, since it has to be moved anyway, I'm going to get it moved to an entirely different spot where it can be up against the wall, well, not touching it, but there's nothing there but the wall. Hi, Tim. Hi, Oswald. Hi. Oh, here comes. Oh, that's Sweetie. Well, she won't say hello to her adoring fans because she's a spaz, but she does know how to demand treats. Cats don't beg, they demand. Where are your treats, kitty cat? Where did they go? There. Here they are, sweetie. Oh, look at it. It's Tora. You want to say hi to your adoring fans? Come here. There. Hey, let go of the rug. Come here. Say hi to your adoring fans, Tora. She says, hiss on you. I want my treats. Okay, hop down. Tora heard me open the bag of treats and came running from the other room. Look, it's your treats. Eat them or don't, because if you don't eat them, Sweetie will eat them. All right, okay. She doesn't want that flavor. How about backyard cookout with chicken, lizard, and beast? Chicken liver and beef. You want that? Do ya? There, here you go. No, I'm not playing games, Tora. If you don't eat it, Sweetie will. Let's kill some COVID. Oh, she doesn't want it. She wants OUT, and she knows that word, so I can't say it. She has never learned the meaning of no. But she has learned OUT, and she will get OUT after I finish this little podcast. Green glass, I think, Oswald, might have something to do with those, I forgot what they're called. When lightning hits the sand in the desert, sometimes it creates a green glass by heating and melting the sand. There's a word for those things, but I've forgotten it. But they were once prized for making jewelry back in ancient times. Well, Tora, if you don't want your treats, Sweetie will eat them. Yeah, well, the door is closed. Yeah, the door is closed. We'll open it later. Anyway, I gotta take a quick break to recycle some coffee, but I'll be back. Yes, Sweetie, you're a spaz. Run away. Look at pretty kitty cat. They're cute. Tori, you'll just have to wait. I know cats don't have patience, but try to find some somewhere. It's a warm, well, relatively warm, sunny day. About 60 degrees, I think. So, of course, the cats think I should open the door for them. Oh, no, it isn't. Well, oh, I have to mess with my phone. It was 52 several hours ago, It hasn't updated the weather. My little thermometer inside the house says it's 67 in here, 60 outside. Huh. That's interesting, Tim, about green glass. The name of a nuclear spy. Hmm. Well, anyway, I'm glad to have my Christmas sweater and my elf hat. It's kind of traditional this time of year. Back when I was able to walk into town, I would walk into town in my elf hat and my Christmas sweater. I can't walk that far right now. I made it through the grocery store by using the shopping cart as a walker, but I was able to stop and rest and stuff like that. I could stop and rest if I used my walker, fancy hot rod style sports model walker with handbrakes and a seat. I could stop and sit on that, but it just takes so long to go even one block that it just isn't worth it to me. And the grocery stores doesn't have bumps. It isn't uphill or downhill. It doesn't have dips or stray dogs. It has stray people, but it's flat and level and smooth. Not so our bumpety streets here. Oh, hi, Paul from Newcastle. Wow. So, anyway, it's almost Christmas. At least I have my Christmas sweater and my elf hat, even though I can't walk around town in them. Okay, let's see if my phone has the current weather report. 55. I usually leave the door open a crack when the cats are outside because neither one of them meows. They don't get let back in until I notice them sitting outside the door. It has glass windows so I can see out. And I really need a door that doesn't have all that glass because even when it's shut, it lets in cold. And yes, I do have a curtain on it, but the curtain doesn't go all the way down because I need to be able to see the cats when they want in and they don't meow. Sometimes they push on the door, and if it isn't quite latched, they even push it open. But oh well. Anyway, I want it to be 60 before I open the door. I've got, that isn't what I wanted. Got to look at something here on the lousy phone. There's a message from a friend who's having bad back problems. I can identify with that. My back has been giving me some trouble lately. And with, the healing broken hip and badly bruised knee, which is often worse than the hip, The last thing I needed was for my back to go out, but it's doing its best to make me miserable. I have and have had for 10 years a ruptured disc. I believe it's at L5. It's the lowest lumbar vertebra right above the sacrum, that fused triangle bone. And some of my other discs are not in good shape, but I can't afford the chiropractor anymore. So I try to keep up with the exercises he gave me to do at home to keep my back loose and not smooshed. But I'm at least 2 inches shorter than I used to be, possibly 3 inches. And my back has been complaining lately, but not so bad that I can't get up. It's just kind of painful to get up. And of course, I have to be careful of my bad leg, the one with the hip and knee all injured and healing. The knee is just soft tissue damage, but that actually takes longer to heal and is more painful. And my knee just doesn't quite bend as much as it should, so to put on pants, I have to kind of lasso my foot with my pants and then pull it up, and my other leg bends so I can put that one in my jeans the normal way. I have gadgets to help me get shoes and socks on and off. My shoes are loafers, so I can usually handle them without the gadgets. I had a very good, gentle chiropractor. None of that crack your bones kind of crap. And I didn't feel it while he was working, but by the time I walked out, yeah, I was in pain, but I was also at least an inch taller than when I went in. But he's moved to a higher rent district and increased his fees, and married a woman who insists on working in his office, and she's allergic to everything. Now, I can go with the no fragrance rule. I don't often wear perfume anyway, but she can actually detect when I have hand lotion. And I use baby lotion, the mildest stuff there is. She wants me to not use it. Excuse me? I have dry skin. Sometimes the skin on my hands will crack and bleed. I have to use my lotion. I figure if she's that sensitive, she should not be working with people. And of course, she kicked out the, um, what's the word? The therapist who uses essential oils with different uh, aromas. Aromatherapist. She had to move out of the chiropractor's office because his wife is allergic to aromatherapy. Give me a break. So, anyway, I just keep the little cheat sheet with the exercises he told me to do and try to keep my back loose and limber. I don't know what she was in a past life. My theory of past lives is simply this, that our DNA of the memories of all our ancestors Sometimes we access those memories. Anyway, ah, what else can we talk about? Oh, I have an electric blanket, and right now I'm sitting on a heating pad. I'm not supposed to sit in a regular chair for very long, but frankly, it's too awkward to have the laptop actually in my lap when I'm on the recliner. Tora didn't eat her treats. She wants OUT, and nothing else will do. She didn't even eat her canned food. Sweetie ate some. I wish I could show you Sweetie. She's a long haired, fluffy, black and white tuxedo kitty. And she's gorgeous. And her image is somewhere on Facebook, on one of the pages, as the top image. I forget which one. Maybe I'll put it on my main. I'm shedding. Main page, my personal page. I don't know. I don't usually let my hair hang in front. It bugs me, right where it touches my cheeks and my neck. But I'm kind of proud of the way it's turning, finally getting more silver than yellow. I used to be a redhead. I had auburn hair, and over the years it got darker and darker. Not black, but a dark, dark brown. And then it started going yellow, and I thought, oh my God, I'm turning into a blonde. But now it's finally getting kind of silver. For a while, I fussed with hair dye, the kind to cover your gray. I started using that when I was 16. Yeah, I still have red highlights, Oswald. I think it's a holdover from the red hair, but I don't have a lot of them left. And I'm losing a lot of hair. I have half as much hair as I used to have, but fortunately, I had a lot of hair, so I don't look bald. But I can tell when I comb my hair, there isn't as much there. Yeah, I had the red highlights really strong even into my 50s, and now they're going away. But depending upon how I shed, sometimes my hair in front at least is brown. I try not to look at the back of my head. It involves mirrors, and something about mirrors frightens me. Even in the daylight, even with good light, they make me uneasy. But at night, if I get up to go to the bathroom, I think, and there isn't enough light, it's just dim light, I think there's a burglar in the house, and it's just my reflection in the mirror. So, of course, my bathroom light stays on all night. Wow. So, I've been on for almost an hour, and I have nothing to talk about except, stuff that isn't merry. Like Merry Christmas. We need to stand up and speak out, but I don't see a forum where we can honestly say what we think and not be attacked or censored, no matter which side you're on or which part of the spectrum. Somebody will be offended. Mirrors and Dorian Gray and smartphones. Yeah, yesterday was the winter solstice and the planetary alignment of Jupiter and Saturn. Apparently, they didn't quite line up completely, so it was like two stars, not one. But it was awesome, and you can watch it on the usual channels like YouTube or space.com or whatever. It was awesome. But I didn't go out to see it live because it's cold out there at night. And we have critters. We have a bear, a mountain lion. See, in this for each these critters have territories. So yeah, there are bears and lions, but in this neighborhood we have a bear and a lion, mountain lion, cougar, puma, Florida panther, the same thing. Which is why I quit reading what's his name? Oh, not Graham Hancock, the other guy. Um, Someone moved all my books, so I can't grab his name. Well, the guy who writes about cryptids, strange creatures. Um, I quit reading his stuff because he claimed there were no panthers in North America. Excuse me? We have all the mountain lions are panthers. Mountain lion, cougar, puma, Florida panther, they're all different names for the same panther. And we even have an occasional black panther, primarily among the Florida panthers, where that gene seems to be a little less uncommon than in other subspecies of the American panther. Oh, Fitzgerald died on the 21st of December? Hi, Doggerland. Denmark, yes. I should look up Doggerland. It sounds familiar and I should know what it is. So let's do that since I have nothing on my mind that's worth discussing. Oh, it's the underwater part. It's a bank. Oh, and there were Mesolithic, that's a Middle Stone Age people had to move off of Doggerland about 6,000 years ago because it sank under the waves. Why is it called Doggerland? It's beneath the North Sea, connected to Great Britain. Oh, it used to connect Great Britain to continental Europe. They named it in the 1990s after the Dogger Bank, which in turn was named after the 17th century Dutch fishing boats called doggers. That's interesting. Sorry about the coughing. I knew Doggerland sounded familiar. I learned from my older and smarter brother that the Scots came from Ireland. Well, yeah, the Lowland Scots. The Highland Scots were already there. They were called Picts, Picts, the Pictish people or picture people. That's what the Romans called them because they had this habit of painting on the walls of caves and painting their faces and their whole bodies, especially if they were going to war. My hip is killing me. Gotta at least push my foot out straight and not bend the knee. See, I'm not supposed to sit here for an hour, so I have to keep getting up. It isn't the pelvis where the ball joint of the femur goes into the hip. It's actually a little lower than that where my femur broke, my leg bone broke. But they call it a hip fracture because colloquially, everything from your pelvis down to your knee, which is really your thigh, but we call them our hips. Anyway, the break was pretty close to that ball joint. Apparently, I'm recovering much better than anyone expected, but that runs in the family. I've heard all the stories like Great Granny was never supposed to walk again. The doctors warned her family after she broke her back in 2 or 3 places that she would walk again. Well, nobody told Great Granny that. So after a few months, she was walking. And I'm walking, kind of bumbling around, but I get to the kitchen and the bathroom on my own. And when I have to go any distance, I take the cane. And it's a really cool cane. Let me get it. It's an actual medical cane that Doris gave me. It's come unscrewed. Okay. It's got a nice handle, and the bottom is the cool part. It has 3 suction cups. It doesn't slip on most surfaces. The cane I had before, even though I put a little rubber thing on the pointy bottom, would slip. Uh, yeah, black panthers have been seen in the British Isles, but of course the experts insist that, oh, they were seeing things. Maybe it was a large dog that you thought was a cat, that kind of stuff. These skeptics, super skeptics, think that if they can come up with an alternate explanation without having seen it themselves, they've disproved it. That it could have been something else, therefore it can't be real. Well, they're most likely to be seen stalking sheep. Must be one of their favorite meals, but they have been spotted. And some people insist that they've seen the Tasmanian tiger, which isn't a tiger at all, but a wolf like marsupial that has stripes in its fur. It's supposed to be extinct. The last one died in a zoo over 100 years ago. But people claim they've seen them in Australia and New Zealand and Tasmania. Hence the name Tasmanian tiger. Hmm. Well, Tim, whether Cain and Abel were twins or not, it was the younger son, Abel, whom God favored. Even though in the Israelite or Hebrew, most of the cultures of the time, the eldest son got everything. When God got involved, it was always the younger son. Well, we don't know about Abraham. Probably was not the firstborn son of his father, but we don't know. Isaac was not Abraham's first son. His first son was Ishmael, and God favored the younger son, Isaac. And Isaac's son, Esau, was born first, but God favored Jacob, the younger son. And when it came to actually the second king of Israel, Saul was first, and he was from the tribe of Benjamin, even though on his deathbed Jacob gave the kingship to Judah. Well, David was not the second son of his father, he was the youngest of 5 or 6 sons. He became king. Solomon was not David's eldest son, and so on and so forth. And it began with Cain and Abel when God favored the younger brother. I still want to know where Cain found a wife, and I am not satisfied with the traditional explanation, oh, well, Adam and Eve also had daughters, and he married his sister, and that was okay. I just don't buy it. It's unstable. I just love being told that my connection is unstable. Let's see if it'll work better over there. Here we go. I'm starting to get into something, so of course my connection goes wacky. The Bible is a sacred book, but God didn't write it with his own hand, and he didn't take over some poor scribe and move his hand in a paranormal manner. God told people to write. And then he either approved or didn't approve of what they wrote. And the descendants of Abraham who wrote most of these books were in a tribal culture. And if you study tribal cultures, you will learn that whether you're talking about Africa or the Americas or Pacific Islands, our tribe is human beings. Every other tribe is either friends or enemies, but they aren't human beings. So my belief is that God created more than 2 people. He created Adam and Eve, who were the ancestors of the Hebrews, of Abraham and all of those guys. And he probably created other people in other places. You think? Maybe. Just maybe. Oh, and if you talk to Native Americans, they think the Garden of Eden was, well, in North America, they think it was somewhere in or near South Dakota. In South America, they have a slightly different story, but they believe that all of humanity began where they live. And there are many tribes with different specific locations for their Garden of Eden. Kind of makes sense. Created more than 2 people. Doesn't make the creation any less miraculous than one. Also, I'm tired of critics who say, oh, well, The men in the Bible had more than one wife. It must be a good thing to do. No, it's just what they did. And frankly, the men who had more than one wife, hi Torah, had nothing but trouble and misery because of it. Even Abraham, who didn't actually marry Keturah, had Sarah and Keturah in conflict, and Ishmael and Isaac in conflict, and he had to kick out his Egyptian concubine and her son. And it really hurt him. He loved that woman and he loved that boy. So, no, God doesn't recommend that you marry more than one woman. And especially in my case, I do not share my bathroom or my kitchen with any woman, not even my sister. Hi, Beacon. Two mothers-in-law. You got that, Doggerland. Well, my mother-in-law was a very nice lady. I think she liked me better than she liked Phil. But culturally, we were miles apart. Different generations, different ideas and philosophy. And I really don't think she was ever equipped to raise a child, especially not one like Phil, who is sensitive and vulnerable and needy. And Dorothy was too British, and they just didn't pamper their children. Oh, anyway, she wasn't mean, at least not deliberately. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's see what else. The Bible had Moses giving all these laws. Well, those are the laws of Moses, not God. And frankly, this eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth thing was much kinder than the laws that they replaced. It used to be if you stole a loaf of bread, they killed you. And Moses said, no, you either pay for the bread or give it back. Double. If you stole one loaf of bread, you give back two or pay for two. Now, in Muslim countries, they cut off your hand, which is a big deal. Your left hand is unclean. You are not supposed to eat with your left hand. So if they cut off your right hand, which they still do, now they have it done by a surgeon in a hospital so you don't bleed to death. But that's cruel. Now, there was a case of death to an entire family. I think it was when the Israelites took Jericho. It was one of those major cities. God said, don't take any of their goods, no gold, no silver, no food, no livestock, nothing. And one guy took some treasures of gold and silver and so forth. He was killed, and so was his entire family. That was a bit extreme, but that order came from God, and God was pissed. Now, they say that the earth opened up and swallowed them, that no human killed them. That's what it says in the Bible, but I don't know. The point is, God's laws are a lot more important than the laws of Moses. God had 10 commandments, just 10. Moses had, what, 300 or 3,000 laws? Oh, can't even remember them all. And hence we get the Pharisees who insisted upon strict adherence to every letter of the law. That won't get you to heaven. Hi, Sandra. Now, the Bible describes things that people did and does not necessarily recommend that you do those things. Oh, and as far as Jesus being laid in a manger and no room at the inn, I think it was Chuck Missler who offered this explanation. When people came to Jerusalem or Bethlehem or wherever for the census so that Rome could collect taxes, the tradition was to stay with your family, your cousins, aunts, uncles, whoever was of your family. And since Mary was known to be pregnant outside of wedlock, even though Joseph did marry her, she was already pregnant. Perhaps their relatives wouldn't let them live in the same house because Mary was unclean, being pregnant and unmarried. So they had to stay in the stable, which was usually the ground floor of the house where they kept the animals. An ox, a sheep, maybe a horse, probably not, more likely a donkey. So no room at the inn meant that the family wouldn't have this unclean harlot, a fallen woman in their house, but they let her stay downstairs with the cows. Sounds reasonable to me. And by the way, Joseph was not poor. Mary rode to Bethlehem with Joseph for the census on the back of a donkey because Joseph was wealthy enough to provide a donkey for her to ride. Carpenters were skilled craftsmen. They weren't wealthy, certainly not like a Roman prelate or senator, but they were very well off. So Jesus wasn't born into poverty. He chose it as an adult, preaching the good news, the gospel. He gave up relative wealth compared to many people of his time. He chose poverty. If nothing else, the three wise men brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Those were very valuable things. And if they were poor people, they would have sold them and become wealthy. Oh, and by the way, frankincense and myrrh were for his burial. They were among the most expensive spices used in a traditional burial. But Jesus was not born in December. It was probably September and probably the 11th, giving new meaning to 911. He did die in March. You see, the birth and death are 6 months apart. With the religious year beginning in September when he was born and ending in March or April. It varies because it goes by the phases of the moon. Anyway, that's when the secular year begins. In Rome, the year used to begin in March, around the, not the solstice, the other thing. Wait a minute. I can't get the word. Equinox. But it had to do with the phases of the moon. So when there was a full moon and then so many days later, whatever. Yes, Jesus amazed the rabbis with his knowledge of the scripture. Even in his hometown of Nazareth. Going, where'd he get this knowledge? Isn't he Joseph's son? Now his disciples called him Rabbi or Rabbi, um, teacher, but he wasn't a rabbi. He was not an official rabbi, or the Pharisees wouldn't ask, where do you get the authority to teach? They would have had to approve him if he were an official rabbi. But if he was God, of course he knew every word of the scripture. No, January won't work either. If shepherds were out in the open fields under the starry sky at night, it wasn't winter. It gets just as cold in the Middle East as it does in these mountains. It gets down to freezing and below. They wouldn't be lying outside in an open field in December or January. Sorry. He should have been born on the Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, which announces the coming of the Lord and precedes Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when we admit that we are sinners. The best of us are evil in the sight of the Lord. We're bad. Our righteousness is filthy rags compared to the glory of God. So even if you think you've done nothing wrong, the Day of Atonement comes and God will let you know. Maybe it's something you didn't do. So maybe original sin. Maybe we were just made that way. But anyway, when it comes down to it, though, Jesus stands in our place as the good and faithful servant. And God doesn't see us, He sees Yeshua, His perfect, beloved Son. So it isn't a matter of mercy so much as substitution. Oh well, Oswald. I don't mind a little joke here and there, as long as it isn't mean. There's more to our downfallen nature than just original sin. There's Genesis chapter 6, the first 4 or 5 verses, in which the sons of God, read heavenly spirit beings, saw the daughters of men, daughters of Adam, that they were fair and took them wives. And then I have questions about this, but It says there were Nephilim in the earth in those days, but I don't see it directly saying the Nephilim were the children of the sons of God. Maybe there were just giants in the earth at the time when the Nephilim came down and created, their wives did bear children to them, but maybe it's just that's the time when this happens rather than those children were giants. In other words, if some humans are giants, but fully human and not hybrids, that doesn't take away what we learn in the book of First Enoch, that the children of the sons of God were giants. See, that whoever wrote Genesis, Moses or whoever, didn't feel the need to fill in the whole story because everybody knew that stuff. They read Enoch, or they just knew it, oral tradition. But I wonder if there were not giants who were from that hybrid race, plus giants who were not. Some humans are very, very tall. I had a classmate in high school who was almost, well, he was over 7 feet. He had to stoop down to go through a doorway. And those doorways were not built by munchkins like my house. My door for an average person. But Mott, we called him Mott, that was his last name. He was very, very tall. I would call him a giant. Too bad he didn't play basketball. Anyway, just a thought. But of course, Enoch tells us that these sons of God who married daughters of Adam also taught people all this technology that was really bad for humans. Not the technology itself, but the way we used it. Men used the fashioning of jewelry to seduce women. Women used the fashioning of cosmetics to seduce men. And men started using metals to create weapons to kill people. We were already a warlike species, but the sons of God taught us to create better war and kill more people. Thanks, Oswald. I think Huxley was kind of cuckoo. I'm assuming you mean Aldous, not Julian. Julian Huxley is very interesting. Aldous' brother. They didn't get along. Quite often, brothers don't get along. Anyway, then of course, there's the Tower of Babel. That tower was meant to invite God to come down and live with us in our city, Babylon. It was part of a temple complex. Well, God isn't a dog on a leash. He doesn't go there. He had already told people, just like he told Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And what did these people do? They built a city and a temple and a tower, and they all congregated there and said, come on, God, come down to our city. No, that isn't what I told you. I need more water. right back. Oh. Well, that's when God mixed up their languages and scattered them and said, "You're going to do what I told you to do, fill the earth." And we still haven't filled it. Everybody alive today in every nook and cranny of the entire world could fit comfortably in the state of Texas or the state of Alaska or Australia and not be crowded. But we choose to congregate in these god awful cities made of asphalt, concrete, steel, and glass. Just checking something. That isn't what God told us to do. And yet these wealthy and powerful elites want to eliminate the suburbs, shove us into these little boxes made of glass and steel and wallboard, where we can walk to the office or factory on pavement, on concrete and asphalt, deprived of sunlight, fresh air. That's one thing people don't realize. In the old days, even in the 60s when I was a kid, even the high-rise, little 6-story or 10-story buildings, apartments had windows that you could open. Some had terraces or balconies. Not now. No, you can't open a window. Not in the new buildings. You're dependent upon a central air circulation system, breathing everybody's germs, breathing every bit of dust that gets through the filters. Hi, Juan. Hola, amigo. Cities are places where the authorities can control people. What did they do in Rome as the empire was falling apart? People pried up the paving stones to get to the dirt so they could grow food. Much like I guess, end of the empire in Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy. In that case, they're pulling up steel plates, but it's the same idea. Even in the cities, when I was a kid, most people had a tiny garden. There were very few apartment buildings, and even the ones that did exist, usually each apartment had a window you could open with a thing called a window box just outside the window or just inside the kitchen window, or both, where you could grow herbs and little vegetables. Not now. Oh no. Estudiaba español en la escuela intermedia. I studied Spanish in junior high, intermediate school. What do they call it now? We don't have junior high anymore. We have, oh, whatever they call it. Same thing. When Mom was growing up, elementary school went through the 8th grade, And high school started in the ninth. There was nothing in between. When I was growing up, they invented junior high. Middle school, thank you, Oswald. Yeah, intermediate. That means middle. Um, well, they kind of invented these things so seventh, eighth, and ninth graders went to junior high. Now I'm not sure how they do middle school. I think it might be just seventh and eighth, whatever. But it was weird being a 12-year-old in seventh grade, which means that ninth graders were 14. The difference there is what we call puberty. We seventh graders were little children. Ninth graders were becoming not only teenagers, but um, physiological adults. Hmm. Well, anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah, the Tower of Babel. Yeah, they built things with rocks back then. Now we crush up the rocks and call it concrete, or we use asphalt. Now, in England and Europe, in America, what we call tar, they call asphalt. In America, asphalt is tar mixed with gravel. In Europe, I believe they call that pavement or tarmac. Like at the airport, there used to be a tarmac made of tar. Now most of the runways are concrete. Anyway, we're paving everything over. Some of the richest farmland in the world is under pavement in Southern California. The farmers have been, in many cases, pushed out to the desert, like Imperial County and South San Diego County, because it was um, it wasn't as attractive to the people building housing uh, and factories and business complexes and shopping centers. And they do pretty darn well, by the way. And in the Central Valley, where many of California's farms still exist, the farmers have been really pushed out as much as the government can manage it. First, they were deprived of water, and then they were deprived of land for Governor Moonbeam Brown's toy train, which will never happen. Farms were cut in half by land grabs by the government to build railroad tracks right through farms. Entire farms were purchased, the walnut trees or grapevines cut down and plowed under, and then they never used the land. Rich farmland not being used for farming. It's more than a tragedy, it's criminal. The people of California wanted a train from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. People wanted to go and gamble and see shows and have fun. What did Brown think he could do? A train from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Never gonna happen. Near the coast, there are these things called mountains. Farther inland, there's this thing called the San Andreas Fault, earthquakes. And just east of, sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. Just east of the San Andreas Fault, more mountains. In the west, the coastal range. In the east, the Sierra Nevada. Now, it might have been possible to have a train from, say, Newhall or Castaic on the southern side of the Grapevine or Ridge Route, same thing. Actually, the northbound route is the Grapevine and the southbound route is the Ridge Route. Well, it might have been possible to build a railroad track parallel to the number 5 interstate freeway to go north toward San Francisco, but no high-speed train can enter even the outskirts of Los Angeles or San Francisco. It's unsafe. There's too many people, too much traffic. They would have to slow down anyway. And the tickets for the train would cost more than an airline ticket. And the trip would take much longer than if you just got in your car and drove from Los Angeles to San Francisco. I used to drive from Anaheim, home of the mouse, Disneyland, to Napa, which is north of San Francisco, and sometimes all the way to Southern Oregon. The train would take longer and cost more. I started flying up north to visit family because an airline ticket was about the same price as the gas I had to put in my car to go there. But because of logistics, you can't really fly to Napa. You have to go to Oakland, San Jose, or San Francisco. Someone had to come and get me. And that was a pretty long drive anyway. So I went back to driving until I was getting older and I realized I couldn't do the drive without falling asleep at the wheel. So then I would drive just so far, maybe up to Sacramento, get a hotel room for the night, and then drive the last leg up into Southern Oregon to see Granny. The best trip of all was on a train. We caught the Amtrak in Bakersfield and took a little commuter up to, I think it was Martinez, where we caught the Coast Starlight. If I'd known we were going to get sidelined on a trestle over the Sacramento Delta all night, I would have paid for a sleeper. But it should have taken just a couple hours to go from Martinez to Klamath Falls. Anyway, it was an awesome train. The seats are comfortable, they're padded, and they don't hunch you over like an airline seat. Whoever designed the seats on an airplane must have been Machiavelli or the Marquis de Sade. Anyway, nice seating, and a dining car where the prices were just average, not super expensive, and yet the food was awesome. I had salmon. Forget what my son had. He was with me. Maybe we both had salmon, but it was just awesome. I'd never had any salmon prepared so well and with such flavors, just the right spices. Mmm, wish I could do that again. Love trains. But Amtrak is kind of expensive. That's why I drove to Bakersfield to meet my son, and then we took the little commuter train because the Coast Starlight was much cheaper when we caught it in Martinez and not down south. Love trains, but that high speed train is never going to happen. What they really need is a commuter line from San Francisco going inland, an east west route. We don't need a train from Los Angeles to San Francisco. It was just a way to take away more land from the farmers who feed us. I guess to make room for factory farms by pushing out the family farmers. Oh, Doggerland, thank you for coming by. Have a wonderful night and morning and Christmas. And God bless everyone. Wow. When my granny was 80, she could get herself to bed. When she was 90, she would take off her contact lenses, take off her hearing aids, and go to bed. I learned early on that she'd let me play on her piano, a little spin it piano, because she could turn off her hearing aids and she didn't have to hear it. In fact, when my grandfather was alive, they used to do that to each other, just turn off their hearing aids. Trains are live history. When I was a kid, when I was able to go to Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm, I didn't have much money. Back then, you could just pay for admission and buy the rides separately. So, like, I'd get in for $2, maybe three, but I'd always take a train ride. Always. Oh, in Knott's Berry Farm, it wasn't a train. I take that back. It was a stagecoach with horses pulling the stagecoach. But at Disneyland, it was the train. Sorry about that. I've been on for 2 hours, you guys, and I'm still just babbling nonsense for the most part. So you all have a wonderful, joyous Christmas. All the better if you can be with friends and family. Well, not my family, but actually, I've outlived most of the ones I can't stand. I've outlived some I'd like to have with me. I've outlived cats and dogs and people, and somebody will outlive me. Oh, we have a local train station in San Bernardino that is historic, and they even have a small museum there. And one time I got to go on a field trip with some other people to that train station where they had the restored engine that met where they drove the Golden Spike for where the two ends of the Transcontinental Railroad met. I can't remember the name of the train. I have a picture of it somewhere. But it was an old coal burning steam engine, little thing. But that was awesome. Most of our trains coming through San Bernardino are freight cars, but the Metrolink runs through there and Amtrak runs through there. It's just that Amtrak, if I want to go anywhere from San Bernardino on Amtrak, I have to go to Union Station in Los Angeles and take a bus to where the train tracks are. Metrolink goes right to Union Station, but Amtrak doesn't. Tren de las Nubes. The train in the clouds? I learned the word nubes from watching an episode of Poirot that had Spanish subtitles. It was Murder in the Clouds or something like that, or Danger in the Clouds, and in Spanish it was Nubes. I've seen pictures of that train. It must be awesome. Anyway, the one thing I never got for Christmas that I wanted more than anything else was a toy train set. But my brother got one, so once in a while he let me play with his train set. Toy trains. Well, yeah, it goes way up high in the mountains, right? It doesn't travel in the air, the train, but okay. Let's see. Translate Nubes. Clouds. Google says nubes are clouds. Anyway, I gotta get going, guys. It's been 2 hours. So have a wonderful, wonderful holiday seasoning and Merry Christmas. I think I'll be on one more time before New Year. Yeah, I will. So celebrate in your own way. I'm going to celebrate by having a nice feast delivered by the Seniors Club today, then having my ham dinner that I cook on Christmas Day. Turkey ham, but it's ham. And maybe singing Hallelujah or some song or other, or at least listening to Christmas songs. So, all of you, stay well, be well, and find your happiness. It's around here somewhere. It isn't out there. It's in here, in your heart. So find your joy, and God bless you all.